Thank you, Mayan. And now the U.S. presidential election could have a major impact on Israel's security and the ongoing war. Both candidates Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have made forceful and sometimes controversial statements on the war, on Gaza, and on the future of the region. Joining us now with more on the candidates' views on Israel and the ongoing war and how Jerusalem views the elections are Aryeh Lightstone, former advisor to U.S. Ambassador David Friedman and one of the leading architects behind the Abraham Accords, and Dan Diker, president of the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs. Thank you both for joining us on this exciting and historic day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it looks like a very close race. Before we begin, any predictions, Aryeh?
I think President Trump is going to win the election. I think the American people are looking to go back to peace and prosperity, and President Trump is clearly the person for that.
Mm-hmm. Dan, any predictions? Do you agree with Aryeh that Trump's going to win?
I think that the winds of influence and the polls are showing that that President Trump has a very strong chance of pulling this out. If you look at some of the non-official polling companies, they're putting President Trump at between a 63 and a 66% chance of winning the elections. I certainly say that in Israel, a vast majority of between the 120 and 200,000 American Israeli voters with the right to vote in the Israeli elections would be voting for President Trump.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I want to start, Aryeh, we'll start with you. I want to start by taking a look at the candidates' views on Israel and on the ongoing war. You were an advisor during Trump's presidency. It's no secret that Donald Trump was one of the most supportive U.S. presidents of Israel. He moved the embassy to Jerusalem, brokered the Abraham Accords, and much more. Do you think if he is elected, he will continue with this pro-Israel record?
Yeah, when he's elected, he will continue to do this because the pro-Israel stance is a pro-America stance. He's going to stand with our allies, and many of our allies throughout the world look and measure their trust in the United States based upon what the U.S.-Israel relationship is like. It went against sort of common thought that recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, opening up our embassy to Golan Heights, and on and on and on, that would push the opportunity for peace further away in the region. In fact, it brought it closer. The exact opposite has happened under the Biden-Harris administration, distancing itself from Israel. Well, we see what the results of that. It's October 7th, and unfortunately, the follow challenges from there and American weakness has demonstrated that Ukraine, Russia, Afghanistan, and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, turning to you, what about Kamala Harris? She's made some controversial statements on Israel. She was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she was the first senior politician to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. I mean, is there concern that she could advance policies at odds with Jerusalem, as Aryeh suggested?
I think she is a candidate that knows very little about foreign affairs. That's not her training. She knows very little about the Middle East, and she also comes from a domestic, a Weltanschauung worldview of what they call human rights, and you always see her those statements accrue to the Palestinians and the Gazans that she calls the major humanitarian crisis, when in fact the major humanitarian crisis is that you still have 101 hostages being brutalized, raped, and held in captivity, including 8, 9 American citizens. So I think that her positions are quite different than President Trump's positions, and I think that they are not. I wouldn't call them anti-Israel positions per se, but I think they're positions that most of the countries in the Middle East disagree with, because they actually advance, strengthen, and energize America's arch enemy, which is the Islamic Republic of Iran and all of its terror tentacles. So I think that she's very low on the learning curve, and she's really reflecting in a way, or mirroring, if you will, the American domestic discourse, which is today dictated by the perception of the oppressed and the oppressor. And I think that there is a mistake here in how that is being mirrored into the Middle East, and that comes out in a strong sense against Israel's vital interests, which are America's vital interests, and they are the vital interests of a stable and secure Middle East as well.
Mm-hmm. And Aryeh, turning back to you, I mean, you are very confident in Trump's pro-Israel record, but there is also a concern in Jerusalem that a second Trump candidacy might not look like the first. You know, there are sort of two streams within the Republican Party today, the traditional pro-Israel stream represented by figures from the last administration, and there's this sort of America First stream, which is not necessarily a pro-Israel stream, and they seem to be gaining influence with Trump. I mean, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I make of this a lot of hand-wringing that happens. I think there was interest in what President Trump was going to be like his first term. What's clear about President Trump is he is not predictable. What is also clear about President Trump is he's going to do the right thing for the United States of America, and Israel is in a strong position to be that standing with Israel is the right thing for the United States of America. So whether you take it from the wing that is less interested in foreign intervention and you take it from the wing that is more interested in foreign intervention, any decision that has to be made is going to be made where the overlap of what's in the best interest for the United States of America will also in all likelihood be for the best interest of the state of Israel. This is one of the advantages to being closely aligned to the United States of America. Now, there will be times, and Israel has made this mistake in the past, where they would creep over towards the size of China with certain investments in technology and what have you. Israel has learned that mistake. I don't believe it's going to do that again. And I believe when President Trump wins the election today, that there will be a new opportunity in the Middle East, one unrivaled by even the 4 years that he had before as president.
Mm-hmm. And Dan, turning to you, I'm curious, how does Jerusalem view the election, the candidates? There is, as we heard, a preference among Israelis, but what about Netanyahu and other government officials?
Well, as you know, Israel's worked with Democratic and Republican administrations both, and in Israel, no matter who the prime minister has worked with both sides of the political aisle in the United States very well. I think that the drama that we're witnessing here from Jerusalem is that this election is not really between Republicans and Democrats. It's between those. It's between President Trump and not President Trump. It's really a personality-driven election, and I can tell you that from Jerusalem's point of view, whoever becomes president will have to understand that Israel has irrefutable, unconditional security conditions to survive in this turmoil-driven, chaotic, very dangerous Middle East that's being driven by the what's known as the Iranian octopus and all of its terror tentacles extending into every country in the Middle East. And that is, in short, Israel will have to have what's known as defensible borders that it can defend. We saw on October 7th that Israel's southern border was penetrated, Israel's northern border nearly penetrated. We're being hit by the air, so it's clear that Israel is going to have to assert itself in this new Middle East in order to survive here with defensible borders, which I think that President Trump is aware of, his advisors are aware of, and I think it's less in the discourse of the Democratic side. But again, these are principles of national security and security that Israel is going to have to insist on no matter who becomes president, because we are living in a far more dangerous Middle East, ideologically and religiously fueled hatred against the one and only Jewish state the size of Maryland, that the American administration is going to have to understand. This is a new Middle East, not the one that former Prime Minister Peres had envisioned.
Mm-hmm. And Aryeh, last question to you. On the U.S. Side, what will be the major issues on the agenda with regards to Israel? What are we likely to see in the next few months until a new president takes office?
Yeah. Well, until the new president takes office, whether it's President Trump or President Harris, I think we're going to be headed towards rocky times. There's clearly a lack of leadership in the White House today. That lack of leadership is going to be exacerbated over the period of time between Election Day and Inauguration Day. If at the end of that rocky period, there's President Trump with a stable hand at the wheel, then I think everything will be able to be managed to be able to make it through that time. If at the end of that tunnel is a President Harris, I actually believe that Israel should take advantage of the instability in the White House at the moment, make bold moves now, because they will not be able to predict where President Harris will land when it comes to Middle East policies. My overall assumption is whatever people are thinking today, it has a strong possibility of being meaningfully worse. Now, I'm not hoping that that's the case, but I think that Israel has to plan for that being the case.
All right. Well, Aryeh, Lightstone, Dan Diker, thank you so much for your analysis today. It's certainly going to be an exciting night as we wait to find out who will be the next president of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.